Hi, I'm Ralph Russell of Springboard Funding Partners. Do you need help getting your PPP loan forgiven? In my chat with PPP loan and accounting industry expert Frank Balestreri of Sensiba San Filippo, we discussed the vital steps you need to take to get your PPP loan forgiven. Frank has successfully assisted hundreds of companies nationwide with PPP loans over $150,000 with complete loan forgiveness. And in the notes below this video, I will share information on how to reach Frank to discuss your specific PPP loan forgiveness. And please mention when you speak to Frank, you first learned about their services from this video with Ralph Russell. We pack a lot of great information in the next 12 minutes. If you enjoyed the chat, please share the video with your friends and let them know they could benefit from this helpful information as well. Thanks again. Hope you enjoyed the video. Countless people have reached out to me, not only my own clients, but other business owners have reached out to me through social media. How do I get my PPP loan forgiven? My lender is not involved in that piece of the puzzle, so to speak. And I started doing some research and see that your company is very active in helping business owners with the PPP forgiveness rules and the application process. So I guess we can start by saying or asking the question, how exactly do companies get involved? Or get in touch with you, I should say, regarding the PPP forgiveness, and what are the key things that people should be aware of when they review their loans for PPP forgiveness, and how do you help them?
Sure. So we've got a landing page on our website, which is www.ssfllp.com. You can click on the COVID banner that's there and get to the Paycheck Protection Program page where it'll ask you for a little bit of information. I think typically it's how much is your loan, what lender are you with, and that gives us some information. And then you have to fill out some company information as well, and that triggers our back end team to get organized, get a phone call set up, and get a statement of work drafted. But we like to set up that initial call, find out where clients are in the process. Usually there's still a little bit of a frantic feeling at this point. The good news is companies have all the way until the due date of their loan to actually file and get forgiveness. Now, the one caveat to that is typically loan payments will start on these loans roughly around the 1st of August, somewhere in that date. It's actually 10 months after the 24-week covered period is when the payments technically start. So we're coming up on that period pretty quickly. I envision that just given the backlog with all the banks at this point, that if you haven't put your file in yet for forgiveness, you're probably going to have to make a payment or two until you actually get your loan fully forgiven, at which point the bank will cut you a check back for whatever payments you've made. But my goal and my team's goal is 100% forgiveness across the board. And I think I've only had 1 or 2 clients at this point out of several hundred where we haven't received full forgiveness. And those are the real dire situations where they've cut payroll so substantially that they just can't, get past the thresholds there.
So how soon in the process can a business owner apply for forgiveness? Say they receive their PPP loan let's say back in January this year. How soon can they apply for forgiveness for both, say, the first round PPP and the second round?
Yeah, so at this point, if they've received their PPP round 2 loan, they can file. Typically you have to wait at least 8 weeks because technically the minimum period is 8 weeks. So for most companies, they got their loans kind of late January, early February on round 2. Round 1, yeah, it's you can file today if you had all your paperwork in order, and that's part of the piece that we bring to the situation is helping them get organized and gathering all the documents. And then where the real help is sitting down with them on a Zoom call like this and actually having them log into their bank and walking them through the process with the bank's portal, because that tends to be a little daunting.
So how soon after you're firm, and we'll get into what kind of documentation you request from the client here in a minute, but one question I get a lot is how soon after a business owner submits their PPP forgiveness documents should they hear back from the SBA regarding their decision, whether it's forgiven or not?
Yeah, so there's a couple of key dates to remember. So once the bank has a completed loan file, they have 60 days to review it. And then once they review it and give their stamp of approval, the SBA has 90 days on top of that for them to go through the approval process. So, you know, the outlier is supposed to be about 150 days. I can tell you on loans below $2 million, it won't take that long. Depends on the backlog at the bank right now. That's really the first hurdle that you have to get over. And then the SBA approval is above and beyond that. The good news is loans over $2 million are starting to see approval from the SBA. I've had several now that have been approved. There was
Wonderful.
a long waiting period there. The SBA was really behind, but once the program closed, they seemed to pick up the pace pretty quickly. So I think that process will continue to improve. So it's anywhere from, you know, a few weeks to, you know, say a few months at this point to get that loan finally forgiven to the point where you can take it off your balance sheet.
So when a bank, or I'm sorry, when a business owner decides that they want to get help with their PPP forgiveness and gets in touch with you guys, you know, walk the viewers through the next steps, you know, the first few steps to, you know, what kind of documentation you want to see, and I guess how long would it take to onboard a client and submit their forgiveness doc?
Yeah, no, we try to automate this as much as possible because we want to make it as simple as possible for everybody. So, you know, the engagement process is pretty simple. There's a short letter that we'll issue that they need to sign that'll have the fees in it. And then from there, we issue an email with a secure link attached to it and ask companies to upload documents. The majority of what we look for really is payroll records. So if you've got a third-party payroll service, this is going to be a lot easier. If you do payroll on your own, like I've seen a lot of companies that use QuickBooks payroll, not necessarily the Intuit service, which is still considered a third party, but they'll do payroll on their own. It gets a little more complicated there because you've got to submit bank statements and your 941s, the payroll tax returns, along with all that information, and it's got to all kind of reconcile together. So it takes a little more time to go through those files. But with good payroll records, you know, that can be anywhere from a minimum of 60% of the loan all the way up to 100. And kind of before we had some changes with some other credits that are available, payroll was kind of the way to go. Other costs that you can put in there would be mortgage interest or lease payments or some utility payments. But I try to keep it simple. And as long as we have enough expenses to go over the loan amount, we'll try to cut it off. Back in, I think it was late December, they added some additional categories. So PPE related expenses, the protection expenses, or if you were a restaurant and had to build out like an outdoor dining section, those expenses would qualify. If you had outstanding purchase orders that you bought inventory on, that would qualify. So they really opened up a lot of the additional categories, but it's still subject to that 40% piece of the loan. But it's made it a lot easier, I think, for companies to get to full forgiveness.
So how do you work with the clients in terms of billing, and what are your, you know, your firm's fees for the services for the PPP forgiveness?
Yeah, so billing is all done up front. We've got a sliding scale that's spelled out in our engagement letter. So basically, as you know, it's done by size of the loan, which typically corresponds to how complicated these situations are.
Sure.
So, you know, that's all spelled out in the engagement letter, and they can see that. And then so we would bill that up front and collect it up front and get the work going. And it doesn't take us very long. It's probably a couple of weeks turnaround time, assuming that the company can get all the information that we need. We can turn these still pretty quickly. You know, we're working through a backlog, obviously, like a lot of companies are in this space, but you know, I think we've got a good relationship with a lot of the larger banks. I've seen their portals. I know what they're all about. And even in some other jurisdictions, the smaller community banks may not have as sophisticated of a portal, but I think we've worked with enough of them now in the greater California area that I'm comfortable with anything nationwide at this point that we could help out on.
Yeah, so you, just to confirm, you can't help clients from all over the country, wherever they may be watching this.
Correct. Yeah. No,
Is there
we are
specific,
agnostic related to geography.
is there a specific loan size that you prefer to work on as far as forgiveness is concerned?
So the minimum threshold where I think you really need outside help is anything above 150,000. And that's the loans under 150,000. It's a relatively simple form.
Mhm.
You got to get three numbers right on that form. What's my loan amount? How much did I spend on payroll? And how much do I want forgiveness for? And in theory, those three numbers should all equal each other.
Sure.
So it's really not a lot of benefit working with us in those environments. I mean, I don't want to engage someone for the sake of engaging. If I can spend 5 minutes on the phone and help them through that process, I'm happy to do that. But above 150 is where you need to start providing some documentation.
Mhm.
And it can get confusing, right? A lot of people aren't used to working with these payroll records, or may not be as tech savvy, and may get intimidated by looking at these online portals. And as experience has shown, pretty much every one of these is different.
Mhm.
Even though a lot of banks may use a similar software, their version of it looks just a little bit different. My team is pretty good at being able to sort through that. And like I mentioned earlier, when where the rubber meets the road is when you have to log into that portal at the very end of this process to go in and key in your information and then upload those documents. We can really shorten that process and make it a lot simpler for the borrower.
Yeah, look, at Zoom calls have been a way of everyone's life in the past year, but certainly it's advantageous in cases like this where you can, get on the bank portal with the client and really give them a lot of hands-on assistance. So, but for people just watching right now, what's the best way for people to reach you, Frank?
Best way to reach me is on my cell phone, and that's area code 925-726-9030. And if you are coming through Ralph, please mention that when you get in touch with me, so I know where the business is coming from. Other than that, you can go to our website, as I mentioned earlier, www.ssfllp.com, and look for that COVID banner, and go to the PPP page there, and it'll ask you for some information that will trigger my marketing department to reach out and get something scheduled. So we try to make it as easy as possible for you. And you can also go directly to our SSF website at that address, and find me listed under the partners there. And that'll also give you my email address. I won't try to spell out my last name right now because we'd have to extend the video for another 5 minutes.
It's okay, Frank. I'll make sure everybody knows how to contact you. But again, this is Frank Balestreri, everyone, partner in charge of the consulting practice at Sensiba San Filippo in the San Francisco Bay Area. Stone cold expert when it comes to everything PPP related. And again, Frank can be reached at 925-726-9030. Mentioned you saw the video here with Ralph, and we look forward to getting a lot of business owners who could really use your help, Frank. And thanks for your time, and wish you guys continued success.
Thank you.
Hey, thanks for checking out this video. Again, please consider subscribing to this channel and hit the alert button when you want to be notified when we post new content. And also check out the notes section again below for Frank's contact information, as well as my own. And if there are topics that you'd like me to cover on future videos, feel free to email me at my email info below. I'll be happy to address those questions and the topics you'd like covered in future videos. And until that time, see you in the next video. Take care.